Good morning, PA.
Morning.
Hi, and MC. Hello there. Nice to
Hi,
see you
good
both.
morning.
We have gathered to have a little chat about making collaborative art in a pandemic, which I'm fascinated by. I love partnerships and collaboration. So please tell me more about how this collaboration started.
I've collaborated before with composers, sound artists, video artists, other performance artists, but I've never collaborated before with an artist actually on the same page or on the same canvas. So that was very different. And there was a second of like, oh, wait a minute, that's my territory, But then I went, no, I want to do this, drop that idea. Anyway, how it started, don't know. 2018 we started. So it sort of made a sort of natural evolution. Well, a step into collaboration with MC, but that was 2018. But doing it during this pandemic was, I think, with the isolation, and then thinking the collaboration was the opposing moment of the isolation. So I thought, well, yeah, that's interesting. Let's make that happen. So MC came down to the studio here and we started working together.
We started a few years ago, and I think during we usually see each other a lot more during the year. So we thought it was a good way to connect, to meet up, and for Pauline to be part of my bubble and to be able to make art together. So it was, and I mean, I was feeling a little bit isolated in London as well. So it was like, for me, it was a great like opportunity to feel more connected to a human being and creativity, because you just end up blocking it a little bit when you're just on your own, especially when there's nothing else to do or no space to breathe. So it was really like an incredible experience, and like finding a way of clarity as well during lockdown. So I thought it was, very
so
freeing.
It's kind of born out of need, really, because of the pandemic. You're feeling isolated, and you're working on your own, not seeing anybody. So it's kind of forming a bubble was a great support network. And then you've worked together before, but actually working literally on the same kind of canvas. How did that come about?
We had this conversation before. I can't remember the actual moment or conversation that said, let's do that. I can't remember when it happened.
Yeah.
It was 2018. We were in MC's studio in London, and we started this just on smaller paper, paid the paperworks.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember why we did it or where it came from.
I can't remember at all. And I've been thinking about it and I have no idea. Maybe it's going to be a question of going through our photos and the phones and see, like, check when the first recording of our collaboration is.
Yeah. But I was thinking about when you were coming here into Devon, and we started working during the pandemic. And one of the things I just thought about yesterday, I think I sent you a note about it, was that one thing that I was good about working with somebody, working with you, I really didn't want to let you down. And so the collaboration made me step up, and I didn't want to fail you. And I think you were the same. And so we were both keeping our energy up and both really dedicated to the process and to the work and to what are we doing with this. And I think that was really important behind the whole thing, to keep us buoyant during these last months and months of the isolation and everything, was that we had this thing going on where...
Absolutely. And I find that it's so strange because, I mean, usually we both have quite social lives, but I feel like this pandemic and the fact that we are isolated it stopped me from being able to communicate like a normal human being, or express things like I normally would, because you've been on your own for so long that ways of communicating get completely blurred, because the dialogue due to the pandemic becomes one that's just frustrated. So the fact that we managed to create our own dialogue by way of painting was something so relieving as well. That it was another language as well that permitted us to understand what was happening and be in touch with the subconscious our subconscious minds and what was happening in our heads. So that's what was really interesting as well, I find.
Yeah, it was like, finding this way, a conversation that happened on the canvas, a language developed, through time, through a process. We started this conversation on the canvas. And the other thing I was thinking, because you mentioned the subconscious and everything, because we were less stimulated, there was less going on, there was less activity, less distracted, then maybe it was a faster process to tap into those deeper places together, because we weren't sort of bombarded with 50 people a night in a pub or whatever. It was just us, kind of, we were just facing.
And that's also what we realized, is that we had so many things in common. Our subconscious minds kind of blended on canvas without us being aware of it. And when we were painting, we were timed. So we had to apply marks within 30 seconds without really having the time to think about, some altering a sign that we were going to put down. But then when we'd step back, what was so interesting is that we could see that we had been saying kind of the same things, and they were articulated together and like to form those works. And that's what was extremely interesting as well to discover.
So you touched on the kind of motivation aspect of having the two of you together and slightly kind of holding each other account. Suddenly, you're literally in the studio together, and you talk, and then you created this amazing visual language, which we kind of continue to talk about. But tell me more about the process that you came up with. Quite a rigorous structure to working together. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I think we did some paintings. If I'm trying to remember, the very first paperworks, when you came down here the first time, we were doing the small paperworks, abstract, and they weren't structured, they weren't timed as much, and it was just, okay, this needs to be focused, this needs to be pulled into a focus. So then we started talking about it, said we need to create some boundaries and structures, not just in the timing, but also on the canvas. We would draw a shape. Did we do the shape together or one each? I can't remember. We would have, we say you've got 30 seconds to put a big shape, and you can't go outside of the shape or outside of that boundary. Again, reflecting to the sort of limitation boundary time of the pandemic. And so you have to work within the shape. And then the timed aspect was because you can't overwork it either. So if you've got 30 seconds to put within the shape your charcoal mark or your crayon or your acrylic mark, there's no time to overthink, or there's no time to overwork and overindulge something. So it kept us moving. And then we'd swap canvases. We kept like that. I think the process developed over experience and over, okay, we need to tighten this up. And we kept tightening the timed aspect of it and the movement of it. And I suppose the early months when were very loose abstract paintings. And then as the process developed, it just got tighter and tighter as the process and the timing got more rigorous. But within the rigor, within the sort of timed aspect, we were still free within those 30 or 60 seconds. We had our own freedom within the boundaried shape and the time limitation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that was the point of it as well, is that we managed to find the freedom within the structure and use the structure at our advantage. And that what I appreciated the most about the timing element was that we didn't have time to think about changing a mark. It really had to be an honest mark on the paper, and we had to zone into our emotion and apply it straight away, because otherwise you lose time and you can't make a mark, and then the other person can't like build on top of what you've done. So it's really, you really have to be careful to be able to put down a mark that the person will or the partner will be able to build on top of. So there is pressure in that way, definitely.
What do you gain from each other from the process?
Well, the one I was saying before was this idea of camaraderie, and then also a mutual support, and I don't want to let you down, you don't want to let me down, and we're keeping the whole thing buoyant and moving forward and keeping it going. And I found it in a funny way, if it had just been me over this last 6 months painting myself in the studio, I don't think I would have achieved as much, and I wouldn't have been as positive about it, because I might have just got a bit despondent on my own and, oh, well, where am I going with this, but because the ideas were bounced, there was if I was sort of going, MC was like, and then if she went, so we kept...
we have to keep each other excited, constantly excited and entertained.
And it was overall, it was always a pleasure and enjoyment to to work. I mean, I think the talking about being in the moment, and you've let no time to think. You have to just go onto there's no sort of thinking time. If you think, you've lost the moment. And also the ego had to be put to one side, because, for example, if I'd just made some marks or done something and gone, oh, I like that, and then MC went to the canvas and just painted right over it, I couldn't think. I'd have to go,
look in your eyes, so you just froze.
I like that bit, but there was no time for like the ego to get in the way. So there was no time for contrivance. You just had to be there and make something happen. And you couldn't be precious about what was happening, really, because a couple of times I remember there was one of the first big canvases we did, and MC went, and I went, what you just done? But then you can't be like that. You just got to let everything go. You just got to let it.
But I find that also, because we had those struggles with some, obviously there are struggles with some works and you try and fix them, but like when we start, especially on the small paperwork, when we started, we'd always have favorite ones, but then the ones that we had struggled with and tried to make work were actually the ones that we thought were more successful at the end. So there is that the works that have a fight or a battle going on them have obviously feel stronger in the end, because they have, there is that battle and there is that conversation and you're trying to make an image happen. So with time, they do become stronger as well, I feel. So that's part of the process, which is interesting as well, because if I put down a mark that you don't like, then you fight for your mark again. And then maybe I'll fight back, and then like it just becomes something else. And it becomes so, and I find that really interesting. A carrot, like, it has a certain weight.
And you were very prolific. Was there the same sort of sense of really getting each other's perspective when it came to kind of editing this down into? I know you've ended up creating a book from these works, and there's going to be a show. But when you had all of this work in front of you, did you agree on the editing process?
Yeah. I think we were quite quick. Was it? It was like yes, no. What?
Yeah.
The paperwork went into the book. We had to, because we had 40 odd, 50 odd, 60 maybe paperworks, and there was 10 in the book? I can't remember, but and we just had to filter through and pick out the better ones, but also keep some of the paperworks that were a bit more mischievous, a little bit more cheeky, so it lightened it a little bit. And then the canvas works, well, now we in Fulham, in the Fulham Town Hall, we've been given more space. So they're all going to be shown, which is great. One thing that always surprised me, was surprising as well, when we were working with this process that we developed, we didn't question it. We didn't fall away from it. We both stayed with the process. And then I wondered if, there was an amount of discipline that we had. We're both obviously very disciplined people,
Extremely disciplined.
This was hours of like focused work, really. you know, and just work quite quietly, working away and stepping away and timing and stepping away and timing. And I did think, because we both, MC more than me, had been to, what's it called, a studio in Florence where I went for a week to try a process called sight size, where you have a model and a canvas, and you're stepping backwards and forwards to the canvas and looking at the light on the face of the model. And it's a very focused, very quiet process that I'd only done a week of, but MC had been to the same studio and done more time over the years than I have. But maybe just because we'd both had that experience of quietly working in a studio and following a disciplined process with somebody, maybe that had already trained us a little bit or whatever. I don't want, sort of given us the idea.
I think we've always had a connection though, like it's never, because we've never really, we've never, touch wood, it's going to stay this way, but we've never really gotten in arguments. We sort out, when you were talking about the book, I was thinking we tend to sort out problems very quickly. Like if there's something that comes up, the other person will like make a decision, and we do sort things out really quickly, and there never really is an argument.
No,
so I think it's that flowing thing where like fine, there might be some frustration, but I just feel like we get over it really quickly and we move on, and like it never becomes a problem.
Well, so that I guess is about communication, because we communicate well, and we communicate well on the page.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe that's another sound base for the work as well, is we can talk and communicate, but that communication is visible when we're working together, and it gets on to the page as well.
Have the sort of learnings from this experience working together impacted your work independently? Has your own work changed at all?
I was going to, I haven't done it, but I was going to try myself working with this timed process, and just go, okay, I'll set some canvases up and see what that's like. And I started it and I went, I can't be bothered doing this. It doesn't feel, I wasn't enjoying it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have these works that I'm supposed to really get on with, and I haven't touched my own work like since I've worked with you, because I need to kind of build up the energy for myself to do it. Whereas I feel like when I'm working with you, then there's a duplicity in the energy that makes you want to do things.
Yeah. So, I'm just going to say, applying the same process to oneself, it doesn't work. It just didn't. Well, it didn't work for me anyway. I was like trying to do this 30-second, 60-second rigorous. I thought, this is really boring. This just isn't happening for me. It was actually boring. So there's definitely something within the two-way conversation that makes that process interesting.
I find that fascinating, that how then when you are on your own, suddenly the structure and the rigor is difficult to keep going on your own. And there was something I read in your book, which I like this quote. It so struck me. It says it's a couple of artists are quoted saying, "The experience of co-creation allows to overcome the traumatic and schizophrenic solitude and isolation of the poet-artist." And I kind of like that. I'm interested in this whole subject of what this pandemic's brought out, the challenges, it's faced, and you guys have turned those challenges
into Alex and
opportunities. Yeah. And it's great how you've turned compromised situation into a real opportunity to work together, and put together the book. And there's the Art of the Now show at Fulham coming up. And where do you see this going? Do you think you'll keep collaborating?
Absolutely, definitely.
I mean, after this show, when the show's up and running, I'm hoping MC's coming down to Devon soonish, so we can do another weekend of painting or week of painting or whatever. And then we're already making some feelers and connections to try and get this exhibition over in places like Berlin, to try and take it further afield. And that's why translating the book into German is in preparation for that.
Absolutely.
So that's a future plan to try and get this work exhibited in Germany.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like our work, I mean, our work would work extremely well in Germany. Just the aesthetic and the scale. I'm really excited about making those works travel, and the collaboration travel.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and the quote you said, the schizophrenic solid. I think we've had a lot of solitude, and I need a lot of solitude. We have a lot of solitude.
Yeah,
but it's when you have your solitude has been chosen by you, but this has been forced solitude, isolation because of the pandemic, and then you couldn't come out of it if you wanted to. You were still here, and that's why I think it was also really important to have this collaboration, because the solitude can sometimes get a little bit and we couldn't change it. So that was important. I think it kept us buoyant, kept us really buoyant.
Absolutely, that's true. Yeah.
No, maybe can you summarize what your kind of key takeaways are from the whole experience of this collaborative work together?
Just how satisfying it was, working together and then looking at this work and going, oh, that actually was really worked and really, so it's satisfying. And just looking back and understanding how to work with somebody, as I said earlier, I've not done before on the page. How successful and how quickly we communicated and evolved the process, the work, and in a way, I think I might have said it in the book somewhere. It was like the work became bigger than us, and the process and everything carried us. We were putting this structure, we were doing this, but it became something of its own. We were following it. And same when we were painting, the painting started, but even though it's in seconds, you were following something that was just happening in front of you. It was, so just satisfying. Yeah.
Completely agree. I mean, it was definitely extremely satisfying and freeing. And because I had gotten to a point in my own work where I was feeling a little bit blocked, and it definitely completely unblocked me and gave me like the sense of freedom, and that actually art and making works can be fun. And that's what we did as well. There was a lot of it was us laughing and kind of putting lines down on the paper and creating an excitement and a buzz and creating stories between one another. So it reminded me that art can be fun, and it should be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It doesn't have to be the sort of hard done by cutting my own throat Rothko moment. It doesn't have to be like that.
Exactly. It should be fun. And I just felt like because we were doing it for each other, the pressure kind of vanished. And that's why the works are quite strong, because we were doing it for each other rather than showing them, putting them out there. They didn't have an agenda or anything. They were just quite pure and fun. So that's what I love.
That's lovely, and we all get to appreciate them soon, which is great, exciting. Thanks, MC. Thanks, PA. That was lovely.